Welcome to the Viking Invasion, the best place to get all of your Cleveland State sports news. My name is Sean McDonald, and I'm joined as always by Matthew Johns.
How you doing today, Sean?
I'm okay.
Okay, that's not good.
Wait, are we judging my day?
No, I want you to have a good day, Sean, not an okay day.
Thank you for tuning into the show. Later, we have an interview with future Cleveland State basketball player Deante "Spider" Johnson. Johnson is a senior at Detroit Edison High School in Detroit, and he is verbally committed to playing for Cleveland State in the 2018-2019 season.
We have an interview with him later in the episode, but first, let's get right into the news and notes from the week.
Head coach Coach Jaketic has announced that he will retire as the school's women's cross-country coach. Jaketic has served as the head cross-country coach for the last 13 years, but he began his career here as a student-athlete on the cross-country team as well as the track and field team. Jaketic graduated in 1972 and soon after became the equipment manager for CSU Athletics. He held that post for 37 years and retired from that position in 2008. In his time at CSU, he has rebuilt the women's cross-country team into a yearly contender. The team's fourth-place finish this year is tied for the best in school history, and Ann Brandt was named Freshman of the Year, the first time the team has had an athlete receive that honor. Jaketic's retirement will be effective December 31st.
I only got to meet Coach Jaketic one time in my couple of years here, but when I did meet him, he seemed like a very genuine guy. He really got along with the athletes he was with and really seemed like he cared about them. So I think they're losing a good one in him, but certainly wish him the best in his retirement and his life after CSU.
We'll move on over to volleyball. The volleyball team learned that it will face 11-seeded Utah in the first round of this year's NCAA volleyball tournament. The Vikings finished the season with a record of 22-7 as the Horizon League champions. Utah enters as the 17th ranked team in the country at 22-9. The teams will face off Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time in Salt Lake City.
Should be exciting to watch. Unfortunately, the volleyball team hasn't done very well in NCAA tournament action in the past couple years. This will be the third straight year they'll be there, and in the first two, they lost both. In 2015, they lost 3-1 to Southern Cal, and then last year they lost 3-0 to Arizona. So hopefully they'll be able to do better and fare a little better this year. Don't write CSU off because they're on this impressive run, and it really doesn't seem like they are going to lose again. So we'll see what happens.
They're ranked in the top 20 teams in the country. But if anybody's probably going to pull off that NCAA win, it's going to be this group. They've got their three seniors, Middlebrooks, Grega, and Kilner, who have won 3 Horizon League championships in 3 years. They've been a part of this winning culture with the team. So if anybody's going to step up to that challenge, it'll probably be them.
Yeah, and that experience that they'll bring to the NCAA tournament will be priceless too. On paper, it's a completely clean slate. CSU's never faced Utah before, so it'll be completely new for both teams seeing each other. So hopefully the experience that Cleveland State brings with them will be able to give them the boost that they need.
So let's move on over to men's basketball. The men's basketball team lost a 1-point game to Central Connecticut Friday night, 74-73. The game came down to the last play, but Cleveland State had to come back from a 14-point deficit at halftime to put themselves in position on the last play. Dontel Highsmith was the team's leading scorer with 17 points and had 13 in the first half. And Central Connecticut ended the first half with a little over 58% shooting. When asked about the first half, Coach Dennis Felton said the team literally looked like we were in quicksand. The team was off throughout the first half and early in the second, and weren't able to make up for it in the second half. The next game is November 29th against Arkansas State at 7 p.m.
Right now, the basketball team sits at 1-4. That is the worst in the Horizon League. Obviously, that's non-conference play, so you don't really expect them to have a great record right now. But at 1-4, every other team in the Horizon League has at least 2 wins. 3 close losses in there. They could very easily be 4-1. The Akron game, the East Carolina game, and the Connecticut game. Those were all winnable games for them. They led big in Akron and then blew it in the second half. They fell behind quick to East Carolina, but fought back and ended up blowing the lead in the final seconds there. That should have been a win. And then Connecticut was really a team they should have beaten. Like they were the better team on the floor that night. Just they, again, dug themselves a hole in the first half and couldn't overcome it. So the record says 1-4. I think for parts of games, they've played better than that, at least half.
I think they should be 3-2. They should have beaten Central Connecticut. They should have beaten East Carolina. I don't think you can really expect them to beat Akron. Akron kind of just out-teamed them.
Yeah, I don't think they should have beaten Akron, but they certainly had the opportunity to, the way they started out the game.
So we put up an article on the Reserve where I did my 5 takeaways from the Central Connecticut game, and there were 2 big things that kind of stuck out to me. If you compare the game to Coppin State, the crowd went from maybe 1,900 people to what looked to be like 300. Now, it was the day after Thanksgiving, and maybe a lot of people were gone, but you could definitely tell that there was no crowd to really pump up the team. But the biggest problem I saw was that there was nobody protecting the plate. Not Coppin State. Central Connecticut just kind of drove in the paint whenever they wanted to, depending on who was out there in the front court. When you had Sloan come in, now Sloan's had a lot of injury issues, which is why he hasn't been playing as much. But when he comes in versus some of your other guys in the front court, there's a definite change in whether or not the other team can attack the paint. Probably my biggest and maybe favorite takeaway is when he's on the court, he brings this veteran presence on defense where the whole defense plays better. And when he wasn't on the court, they were just getting layup after layup. They were driving in where other teams might shoot the 3 ball and play in a way kind of like Cleveland State that drives up the score. This team was dunking and layups, and they weren't like a big athletic team. They're a smaller program than us. But for whatever reason, we just didn't really have anybody other than Sloan and Claiborne, but Claiborne didn't play much in the game, who were really dominant in the paint.
Well, I think everybody knew from the start that the thing this team was going to struggle with was protecting the rim and having size on the floor. Obviously, Felton's style is more attuned to a smaller lineup, but at the same time, they don't have anybody protecting the rim. And that it wasn't that big of a deal in the games leading up to this one because the teams CSU faced really like to shoot the 3 ball, but teams are going to eventually recognize that this is a huge weakness for Cleveland State, and they're going to attack that. And the fact that Derek Sloan is dealing with the many small injuries that he has and is struggling to stay on the floor, especially for long minutes, it maximizes that problem because now you're looking at pretty much your only 2 bigs are Stephon Kenich and Jamarcus Hairston. Hairston hasn't been playing a whole lot of minutes. Kenich has been struggling on defense. So somebody's going to need to step up there or they're going to get demolished in the paint all season long.
I talked about in my article how I like Wright being maybe your 4 in the lineup. I do think that he is fast enough to play the man defense Felton wants to play. He moves the ball well. He can be all over the court, and he still on the offense can be in the paint. But I don't really like Kenich playing as one of your 2 front court guys. I think he's better suited to play the 3. He's a catch-and-shoot guy. He isn't a defensive player. He doesn't really even have the ball handling or, to really make opportunities for himself. And he's making some freshman mistakes where he's not moving the ball well enough, like maybe Sloan would or Wright do, where they move the ball really well and they create opportunities for other people on the team. There was a lot of freshman mistakes for Kenich, and it feels like he's playing in a position that he isn't comfortable in, and that's what it looks like.
You bring up Anthony Wright, and it's worth noting, too, that he was in the starting 5 again against Connecticut, and Dontel Highsmith was not, which is interesting to me because, obviously Highsmith ended up playing very well. I don't know if it's because of the defensive side of the ball, why Highsmith, not a strong defender, might be why he wasn't in there. Something I really notice is that Cleveland State is really struggling finding and defining rotations, and I think that's evident alone in all the different starting 5 combinations. Now, of course, the injuries to Sloan, Kenny Carpenter had an illness, had to miss some time. All of that's kind of factoring into this, but at some point, Coach Felton is going to have to set a definitive starting 5. And I think as we go, it'll start to take shape. Hopefully by the time we get to league play, it is set in stone. It's ready to go. Keep your eye on Tyree Appleby. I think he's going to be in the starting 5 before you know it because he's such a disruption on the court. Sloan, it day by day. Kenich, hopefully gets a little sharper. Yeah, I think rotations are something that Felton needs to define, and he needs to get set sooner than later because it's only going to help the team.
Well, at one point he did have 4 guards on the floor. He ran Highsmith, Appleby, Cash, and Word, and put Carpenter in and out of that lineup, and he had Wright as his only big man. The problem I see with getting Highsmith in there is just you have to take him out for one of your 3 other guards who are already playing in your starting lineup, and who do you take out? Do you take out Cash? Do you take out Word? I think you need Wright as your second big man, as your 4, and preferably I'd want Sloan, as my last big man there rather than Kennick. But it seems like Kennick's going to stay in this lineup, so as long as you have Kennick in the lineup, you need somebody else in the front court, and that's who I put Wright out there, which he has been doing, because Wright he's not your best rim defender on the team, but he can do it. And you need at least somebody out there who can do that, with Kennick just not really being where he needs to be defensively.
I was critical at the beginning of the year about Derek Sloan and how he fits on the team. I still maintain that he's not going to get a whole lot of minutes even when he is healthy, but I think there is a lot of upside to starting him for defensive reasons alone. But if you start him, then you don't start Wright.
Yeah. Well, you can go Wright when they made their comeback in the second half. They had Wright and Sloan. They did Wright and Sloan out there in their front court, and they did Hairston and Sloan. Hairston is great on defense, but he just doesn't really have the scoring capacity to play a huge amount of minutes. Sloan, to me, the only thing holding him back is his chronic pain, and you can't,
you can't fault the guy for that. It's
and
you're
not, and you're never gonna know.
Yeah.
So you can't start him only because you need chemistry, and one day he's in your lineup, one day he's not. He's not practicing that much because they're trying to not put a heavy load on him.
Another thing I was thinking about, too, is that if Tyree Appleby does sneak into this starting 5 as we go through the season, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Cash Thomas in response to that, because I don't know if you really want to start both Cash and Tyree for size purposes alone. The good thing is Tyree is really good at attacking the rim. So it's not really a big deal as far as scoring points because Appleby can attack the rim, and maybe that helps Cash a little bit too, gives him another option to dump the ball off too. And I think if he attacks the rim, brings some defenders with him, could open up guys like Kenich and Word on the perimeter to start shooting the 3-ball more too. So it'll be interesting if that does happen. I kind of like to see it now that I start talking about it. But obviously somebody's going to have to come out of the lineup, and Felton's going to have to decide who's going to lose the minutes if they do begin to start Appleby.
So let's go ahead and move on to women's basketball. The women's basketball team is coming home after competing in the South Point Thanksgiving Shootout over the weekend. The Vikings dropped their first game on Friday, 80-64 against St. Louis University, but bounced back Sunday night with a 54-45 win against Louisiana. The team is now 3-2 so far in the season and will face Eastern Illinois Tuesday night at the Wolstein Center.
Something Coach Abiad brought up after the game, and even on Twitter, was about Shadé Bosley and her defense, which we've talked about before. She's a really good defender. She called her a defensive stopper. I think this team, it's starting to show that it's going to compete this year. They're going to be a factor in the Horizon League. They've got the scoring power. They've got the chemistry, as we heard last week in our interview with Coach Abiad. So they're going to be fun to keep watching.
Well, you did have Kayla Livingston hit her 1,000-point mark in her career. When we talked to Coach Abiad about it, she kind of played it down. They weren't really worried about it, but it is nice to see her get that recognition because Livingston, as Abiad talked about in our interview on our last episode, has really developed into a point guard who can both pass the ball efficiently and score efficiently, and she's really developed this really nice game where she can do both for her team. So let's go ahead and move on over to our interview we did this week.
This week we have Deante Spider Johnson. He is a 6'7" forward coming out of Detroit, Michigan. Johnson is what you call a prototypical big man in Coach Felton's system because he has the skill set to play multiple positions. We talked to Johnson about why he chose Cleveland State, where he sees himself in Felton's offense, and what NBA players he tries to emulate.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
I'm Deante Johnson. I go to Detroit Edison. Been going to Detroit Edison since kindergarten. It's always been my school. I can play any position on the court, really. 1 through 5, whatever you need. go out there and get the job done. I'm very energetic, very all over the place.
What's your favorite play to make on the court?
I like getting the block and then going down to get it dunk. Like, that just really, like, brings a lot of energy to the court. Get me pumped and get the team going, get the crowd into it, and just bring the whole team down. Mostly after that, it'd be a timeout, and it's just bring a whole roar to the whole atmosphere, and I just love seeing that, and I just love that feeling afterwards.
Where do you kind of see yourself in Coach Felton's positionless system? Like, where do you see him maybe putting you?
I see him putting me at, like, the stretch 4. I could be out on the perimeter, and I can go into the post. What Coach Felton said, he said, I can get the rebound, and I can go, and I can make a play. And I feel like that's, like, the best opportunity for me to show what I can actually do. I feel like I am, like, Anthony Davis under Kenneth Faried, like he described me as, and I can push it out and make a play for the team.
So what are some of the reasons you decided to commit to Cleveland State?
Cleveland State was like, when I went on the visit, they treated me so well. They treated my family so well. It was like my first college visit, but it just felt like it was just the place for me. Like, when I practiced with the team, I just felt like I was a part of the team. I was so close with them, and it was like I was already there. And I just feel like, yeah, this is the spot for me. Like, the system was perfect for me. Like, that's how I want to play. I want to play fast, get up and down the court, make some plays, get dunks, get threes. Like, that's the way I want to play. And with Coach Felton, I think he's a good motivating coach that's going to motivate me to want to do more and get me to where I want to be. So I just felt like Cleveland State was the best place for me.
You earned the nickname, Spider-Man, Spider Johnson. How'd you earn that nickname?
I earned that nickname playing with Detroit Elite, like, when I was, like, 10 or 11 growing up. They said I was just so long and athletic, and I was all over the place, like a spider. So I just got that. I got that nickname from them.
So you talked about Anthony Davis a little bit. Is that kind of one of the guys you try and emulate with your play style?
Yeah, I watch Anthony Davis a lot. I watch Anthony Davis, LeBron, Kevin Durant, some type of players that just make plays, just not for them, but for the rest of the team. Like, I like players that's not so selfish. It just wants to get the rest of the team into it. That is like the way they play. How
do you feel about the Anthony Davis Boogie Cousins combo they kind of got going down there right now?
I love the combo. I think that's two dominant big men, and they're just so dominant on the court. They can bring the ball up, they can shoot, they can play defense on the perimeter and in the paint, and they just bring a lot to the table for the team.
So one of your AAU teammates, Rashad Williams, has already signed on for next year. Was that a big part of you deciding to go to Cleveland State? Did you guys kind of talk about it and say you wanted to go to the same place?
Me and Shai had lots of conversation about me going to Cleveland State. It wasn't really a motivating factor, but it's a good thing that he's there with me, because me and him are very close friends. We know each other for a long time, so to know that he's there with me, it's going to be a fun time playing with him at Cleveland State my 4 years.
What does he kind of bring to the table as a player?
Rashad is a very solid point guard. He can bring the ball up. He's an excellent shooter. Like, if you leave him open, it's 9 times out of 10 going to go in. He's a good leader, too. He's a good point guard. He motivates me to do better. Like, when I'm down and I can't make a shot, he always said the next shot going to go in. He's a good point guard to have and a nice teammate to have for my college experience. What
do you want to say to the guys who are listening to this podcast and are excited to see, you and Rashad kind of come in next year?
I want to say, come out to the games. We're going to put on the show for you guys. It's going to be a long road, long, fun road. We're going to have a lot of good games. It's going to be fun. We're going to put on the show for y'all.
This podcast is made possible by TheReserveNews.com. The Reserve is a new website dedicated to local Cleveland news, sports, and entertainment. Go to www.thereservenews.com for more.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Viking Invasion. We want to go ahead and thank Deante Johnson for taking the time to do the interview with us. And we want to invite all of you to listen to us next week.
But before you listen to us next week, this is what you need to do for us. You need to go to Twitter, and you need to type in the search bar at The Reserve Media. You're going to click on it, and it's going to be us. And you're going to hit the follow button. And then you're going to see everything we do, all the articles. It'll get sent right to you. You don't even have to type in the URL for the website anymore. You can just click on the links in the tweets.
And do you know that there's still people who just go to our website, they don't find our articles on Twitter? Like, what are you going to do? Just follow us on Twitter. We'll send it to you. Yeah. You don't need to just go on there and check we're going to post something. We're going to tell you when we post stuff. We got live tweets during the game.
You'll know exactly what's happening. You'll know exactly when Kayla Livingston and Ashanti Abshaw combine for 45 points tomorrow night.
You'll know my stupid opinions about men's basketball as I'm formulating them in my brain.
Exactly.
Sometimes I forget words in them. Sometimes I get somebody's name wrong. I mean, who knows? You're missing that.
You will get to see all the times we're in the second half of the game, and I continue to tweet that we're in the first half of the game.
You're missing prime content. What are you doing? Go to twitter.com or open the little birdie app on your phone, type in the Reserve Media, and just follow us, and it'll all just be better. Thank you for listening, everybody. We will see you next week.